Hey guys, so today we have a huge topic to try to unpack, and that is buyer agency and buyer agency agreements. So I'm going to start with the olden days. Way back in the olden days, everybody represented the seller. So it was either the listing agent was representing the seller or the person that had a buyer, they were actually considered a sub-agent of the seller. And naturally, buyers would be like, what do you mean you're the sub-agent of the seller? I thought you were looking out for me. And that was all part of listing agents trying to encourage people with buyers to come to them so they would cooperate and share their commission with the buyer's agent. Hey guys, I just wanted to jump in here really quick to explain even more of the backstory on this. So first of all, it was for encouraging cooperation. Initially, real estate agents primarily represented sellers, and buyers had to navigate the market on their own. Now, this system was not only challenging for buyers, but it also limited the pool of potential buyers for a property. By agreeing to share the commissions, agents representing sellers could incentivize other agents to bring buyers to the table, thereby facilitating transactions. It expanded market reach. Before the widespread use of the internet and multiple listing services, the MLS, agents had limited means to advertise properties to a broader audience. Commission sharing enabled agents to tap into each other's networks, effectively increasing the visibility of listings and the likelihood of finding suitable buyers. This is also a benefit to the buyer because now they have easier access to greater listings, more homes to pick from. Standardizing practices. As the real estate industry grew, there was a need for standardization of practices. Commission sharing became a norm which helped in streamlining transactions and ensuring that both the buyers and sellers' agents were compensated for their effort. The emergence of buyers' agency in real estate further cemented the practice of commission sharing. When buyers' agents became more common, the industry adapted to ensure these agents were also compensated for their services, typically through a share of the commission paid by the seller. The mutual benefit. Commission sharing creates a mutually beneficial scenario where both the buyers and sellers' agents are motivated to work together to complete a sale. This cooperation tends to lead to more efficient transactions and satisfied parties on both sides of the deal. To summarize this little breakout session, commission sharing in real estate evolved as a practical solution to encourage cooperation among agents, expand the market reach of listings, standardize industry practices, and ensure fair compensation for both buyers and sellers' agents. Now, back to what I was saying. Okay, so then now let's fast forward. It's the late 90s, and Washington State decides that it's really not right that a buyer doesn't have representation. This is a huge purchase, and so what they did was they made it presumed that unless you had a contract with the seller, you were presumed to be working with the buyer. So that's great news for the buyer, and frequently we agents, which are now we're called brokers, but we would frequently say to people, hey, I'm actually representing you, and the best thing about it is that I'm free to you. Well, a few years back, they decided to change the verbiage here in the Northwest Multiple. We wanted to make it very clear who was getting paid what. And so instead of there just being a fee being paid to the listing firm and then the listing firm sharing that with the buyer firm or the buyer's agent's firm, they went ahead and they broke it out and spelled it out in the contract. Hey, seller, you're going to pay a total of so many apples, and of those number of apples, this many is going to go to the person that brings us the buyer. And then they even did it a little bit differently recently where it's like, hey, seller, sign this contract and you're going to be paying the listing firm X. You will be paying the buyer brokerage firm Y. And so then that way it was like crystal clear how the compensation is getting distributed. Well, there was a lawsuit where a seller said in Missouri, hey, I didn't know I was going to be paying this other agent and they did a terrible job, and so I don't think I should have had to have paid them. And so it ballooned into a class action lawsuit, and the jury just found that NAR, the National Association of Realtors, and Keller Williams and Berkshire Hathaway were guilty, I suppose, of collusion, or I'm not entirely sure because commissions have always been negotiable. So the verdict is going to be appealed, and we don't know how it's all going to shake out, but the first overarching thing is Northwest Multiple has been way ahead of this trend of transparency and being crystal clear, and so things around here aren't really going to change all that much. But one of the things that has been happening is that because we were presumed to be working for the buyer unless we had a listing agreement, it has not been that common to come to the buyer and actually do a contract. Just like your CPA will have you do a contract or your attorney will have you do a contract. It spells out everything. But we as buyer's agents have been like, well, we represent them anyway, so here we go. Plus, we know that buyers are already having to come up with a down payment. They're having to come up with closing costs. And so the idea of even approaching them and saying like, and you're gonna have to pay me, it feels like something unattainable for many buyers, especially if they are not high income wage earners. Just breaking in here again, because there's more I want to say. One of my biggest fears is that lower income buyers, first time home buyers, VA buyers, a lot of people that don't have super high paying jobs or that just don't have access to copious amounts of money are not going to end up having representation by a buyer's agent, and they will end up talking with the listing agent who cannot give them representation. It will be limited dual agency, which means they can't get advice from that listing agent. And so if the buyer's agent goes away, here's what I fear is going to happen, is that only the wealthy will actually have the best representation. So let me tell you really quick what you get with a very competent buyer's agent. You get negotiation skills. Real estate agents have the expertise to negotiate prices and terms effectively. Low-income buyers might not have the experience or the confidence to negotiate on their own, potentially leading to higher prices or unfavorable terms. Market knowledge. Agents have comprehensive knowledge of the market, including pricing trends, neighborhood specifics, and upcoming developments. This information is vital for low-income buyers to make informed decisions and find homes that fit their budget. Access to listings. Agents have access to a wider range of listings, some of which might not be publicly available. This increased access can be crucial for low-income buyers to find affordable homes. Ask me about Arch Homes. Understanding of financial options. Agents can guide buyers through various financial options, including grants, subsidies, and special loan programs for low-income buyers. This guidance is critical to ensure that buyers don't miss out on opportunities to make homeownership more affordable. Paperwork and legality. The process of buying a home involves complex paperwork and legal procedures. Agents can help navigate these complexities, reducing the risk of errors or legal issues that could be costly for low-income buyers. Advocacy and support. An agent acts as an advocate for the buyer, ensuring that their interests are protected throughout the buying process. This support is especially important for low-income buyers who might otherwise be overlooked or taken advantage of. In summary, the representation of real estate agents is key to safeguarding the interests of low-income home buyers, providing them with the necessary expertise, access, and support to make a successful and fair home purchase. So, Washington State is going to require, starting January 1st, that all brokers get a buyer agency agreement signed as soon as reasonably possible. And that means before looking at homes. Now, there's going to be two options on the form, and that's going to be exclusive and non-exclusive. And I can understand why people may want to start out non-exclusive. We need to make sure that we can work together. So, we can start out there, we can start out exclusive. Either way, there's some pros to going with an exclusive buyer's agency agreement, but you need to expect, especially if you've purchased a home before or you've even been shopping recently, you need to expect that agents are going to start asking for a buyer brokerage service agreement, and they're going to be discussing compensation. If the seller doesn't offer the compensation that is on that contract, the good news is that we are now allowed to negotiate with the seller to pay any difference that there might be. If we find out that a seller is not going to pay that difference, we will have a discussion ahead of time what to do about listings like that, whether or not you still want to see them or if you want them off the list. But we are going to be going through and discussing possible outcomes ahead of time so that we're not showing you something, having having you fall in love and then realizing that you're going to have to come up with more money than you actually have available to you. So something else that I really want to talk about is that I know that sometimes buyers don't want to bother their agent, and they think they're doing their agent a favor because they're on Zillow surfing around, and then they're like, oh, I like that house, and they just hit that call button, and they could get an agent who shows them the home, and then they call up their friend or their agent and say, oh my gosh, I saw this great home, I'd like to write it up. So I want you to imagine what it would be like if you went into your job, you know, it's dinner time, your job calls you in for a couple of hours, you leave your family, you do a bunch of research ahead of time, so you've invested many hours, and then your coworker who was enjoying the family birthday party, they get paid for those hours that you invested. So that wouldn't feel very fair. And to be crystal clear, we brokers are not compensated for our gas, our time, for the investment into having the ability to use the key box, for having a subscription to the NWMLS. Like, there's a lot of expenses that we have that we're not compensated for. We get compensation when a transaction closes. And the other thing is, it's really important to have the agent that's representing you show up to showings and at least have a chance to look at the house. You probably haven't looked as many homes as an agent that's doing this full time and has been for many years. I can come up to a house, look around, and say, oh no, I'm concerned about the resale value. I see high tension power lines. I am noticing that the siding appears to be failed. But what I want to point out is that it is important that we form a loyal relationship. And by having that loyal relationship, that means that I can send out mailers on your behalf to neighborhoods that you've fallen in love with if we're not coming up with homes. Our job isn't just opening a door or finding the house. I know a lot of people are like, oh, well, my agent didn't do anything because I found the house. Well, your agent did do a lot, actually. They're a professional at their job. They had to negotiate the paperwork, which has ballooned from when I first started. The amount of paperwork has just gotten enormous. We negotiate on your behalf. We negotiate again if there's an inspection contingency. We help guide you. We are kind of like project managers. We can tell when something isn't going quite right, if the appraisal hasn't happened quite soon enough, if it feels like the lender has disappeared and they've gone radio silent. Like, there's different things that happen that you would only know if you're experienced. And I know sometimes people think like, well, I watched a couple of YouTube videos, how hard could it be? Even the most seemingly easy job requires a lot of side-by-side training. So in other words, like, even if someone works at McDonald's, there's a process, there's a system. You don't just watch one YouTube video and be like, oh, I know how to make a McDonald's hamburger. I know how to use the fry thingy. It's not how it works. So it's really important that you have professional guidance next to you while you are going through this process, because this is probably the biggest financial transaction of your life. Breaking in one last time. Are there some positives that could come from this? Absolutely. I think we're going to have greater transparency, and I think that this is going to make the industry raise its standards and really clearly articulate the value that they are bringing to the table. I think that as agents, frequently, in an effort to shield our clients from all that is happening in the background, we make it feel very simple when there's a lot of complexity. Also, I think it might be good if the barrier to entry was raised so that the agents that are representing their clients are best in class. And now back to the video. So be on the lookout for buyer agency agreements being presented to you. Be ready to discuss your concerns. I'm going to link a pamphlet that Washington State has created in the comments below if you're curious about learning more about it. And if you're thinking of making a move, I would love to help you. So one of the other things that I'd like you to do, I've just launched a new series called Behind the Sales, Real Estate Cautionary Tales. So check out the cards. It will literally save you thousands of dollars if you can avoid some of these mistakes. Check it out.